Hello, my friends. Happy Sunday. So good to see you guys. If you had a great week, I know lots and lots of you are traveling, right? It's been a good summer for that. Everyone is getting out and about and visiting people. Has anybody gone to visit their grandma? Yeah? Well, hey, we are in the middle of our unit studying different countries, and we're going to study another country today. If you've missed some of those, go back TVC Kids Nashville on YouTube, and you can catch all those countries. But I wanted to talk about grandmas for just a minute. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. So I'm sitting in my flower bed, one of my favorite places, right? But this flower right here, do you see this orange tiger lily? This came from my grandma's garden. If you come visit me sometime, I can show you where all my flowers have some kind of meaning attached to somebody I love in my life. But this one comes from my grandma's garden, and her garden wasn't like a fancy garden. Her garden, she had a little cottage house, and it would go down to this river, and the whole hill going down to the river was covered in those lilies. And so long time ago, long before my grandma went to heaven, I went to her house and I dug up just a few of those lilies, and I've planted them around my yard. I've given them to friends. I've shared them. They are so strong. They just keep coming back every year. They never fail. They always come back. Well, this year, I had one come up in a very precarious place. Very precarious. Can you say that? It's very weird to say. But anyway, it came up in the sidewalk. So that meant the drain water moved in my yard and went down. And so in front of my flower boxes, in the concrete, right in the little crack of the concrete, came up one of these lilies. And there it was, blooming in the concrete on the sidewalk for everyone to see as they went by. So that's just a little testimony to my grandma. But we're going to talk about grandmas in the country we're going to talk about. Are you ready to hear which country we're going to talk about? Dun, da, da, da. It is Russia. Now, Russia, which also happens to be orange on my globe today, is the world's largest country. So can you see it? It goes from here all the way to here. Can you guys see that? Yeah. It's a huge country. It's the largest one in the world, and it has 11 time zones. So do you know how America's a pretty big country, right? A lot bigger than like the European countries and things like that. But we have only 4 time zones, which is a lot. So we have the Eastern, which is like New York, Philadelphia, the Central, which is us, the Mountain, which are like Colorado or those states in there. And then we have the Western, which is California, Washington State, Oregon, those states over there. Okay, so that's 4 different time zones. Russia has 11. It's so huge. It has 11. And Russia, it can be very beautiful. It could also be very cold. All right. And it's a wonderful country. It's a very old country, but I wanted to tell you about some things that are a little different about Russia. All right. First off, most people live in high-rise buildings. Not that many have yards and places. They have a lot of high-rises, especially in Moscow. They have the big city. They have a lot of high-rises, and then they have little courtyards or playgrounds for the kids to gather together. But everybody doesn't have their own backyard like we do. There's also really good transportation. People can get on and off buses and metros that go around like a big city, kind of like New York would be. All right. So it's a very bustling place. People are going here and there. They have beautiful churches. But let's talk about some of the not so fun facts about Russia, because those churches lead me to that. Those churches are not used for churches anymore. Those churches are mostly museums. Sometimes maybe an art gallery or something, but they're mostly museums. They're not used for churches. And why is that? Well, this is why. From 1917 all the way to 1971, like 70 years, okay? 1917 and 1971, there was a rule in Russia that no one was allowed to believe in God. They weren't allowed to teach about God. And sometimes the pastors or speakers would get thrown in jail. So right what I'm doing right now, during that time period, I could have been thrown in jail for teaching you about God. Could you believe that? Well, what do you think happens when a whole country is told you can't believe in God for such a long time? Yeah, you're right. People stop forgetting about God. And it was a time it was called communism. And the time, it not only, they wouldn't let you believe in God, so that kind of took away freedom, didn't it? Took away imagination and creativity and thought. And they were told, here's your job. We're going to give you a job. We're going to give you a place to live. Everything's just like this: no creative freedom, no ability to believe in who you are in Jesus, right? What happens to a country when that happens? People start to forget. But guess who didn't forget? The grandmas. Yep. A lot of times the kids, the moms and dads both had to go to work, and they were raised by their grandmas. And the grandmas, they remembered God. All right. They were old enough to go, wait, I lived during a period where we were allowed to believe in God, and I remembered God. And so I'm going to teach my kids. And so the grandmas were the ones who were keeping the country strong, even though so many people forgot about God. Well, I'm going to go back and tell you another story about another grandma now. Are you ready? It's all about grandmas today. Well, my friend Marty and her husband Paul, they're the ones that came to tell us about Russia. And when Marty was just a little girl, she prayed. She went under her covers one night and she prayed and she said, Lord, how do you want to use me? What do you want me to do? And he told her that he wanted her to be a missionary. She's like, if I could be a missionary, I want to do that for you. And guess what? She grew up. She didn't get to be a missionary. She got married. She didn't get to be a missionary. She got to run a Christian school, and it was wonderful. She had a wonderful life. She met a wonderful man named Paul, and they got married, and they had a beautiful life. But she still didn't get to be a missionary until she became a grandma. So here she was, a grandma already. That's not usually the time when people start to go on a mission trip, is it? Usually it's when people are young and they have lots of years ahead of them and they think, I'm going to go and do this while I'm young before I have kids. But no, she was already a grandma, and she and Paul decided to go to Russia. And they turned in all their paperwork and they thought, they're not going to take us. We're too old. But guess what? God had a different plan, and they did take them. And so during the time of communism in Russia, there was these places, they were camps, where they would gather all the most talented kids, and they would take them to these camps, and they would train them up to be leaders. Well, when Marty and Paul went, those camps were still going on. So that's where they got to go. They got to go to Russia, to one of these camps where these kids were very smart and very talented and very bright. They were going to be the next leaders. And they got to go to those camps and teach them about Jesus. And they spent so much time there, 8 years there, teaching the kids about Jesus and raising up young leaders. So many that these young leaders are now pastors in Russia. All right, there's one special pastor, his name is Yuri, and he's even come to TVC. He's come to visit us, right? And we help support his mission work there. And he teaches young people. And so what they started as just grandmas and grandpas, they started missionary work that led up new pastors. And now Pastor Yuri, he runs a seminary, which is a place where pastors come to be taught how to be better pastors. And so do you see this big circle that started from Marty praying all the way to getting married, to starting a Christian school, to thinking they were too old, to being grandparents, to going to Russia and starting something with new young people ready to tell people about the Lord. What a beautiful place to go, a place where God was not allowed for so long. But when those doors opened, whoosh, in came Marty and Paul, ready to tell people about the Lord. What do you think, guys? Is there a door opening for you? Is there a door opening somewhere where you could tell somebody about the Lord? You don't have to go to another country right now. It's fun to learn about these other countries, right? It's fun to learn about their food. In Russia, they eat a lot of soup. It's called borscht. It's with beets and potatoes and carrots. They eat yummy, yummy breads. They have beautiful foods. They celebrate with beautiful flowers. But you know what? You don't have to go all the way to Russia. You don't have to go to Ecuador or Brazil or some of the countries that we've talked about already. Next week, we're going to talk about Haiti. All right, we don't have to go away. You can tell people in your own village, your own neighborhood, right, about the Lord. Bring people out to church with you, guys. Tell people about the Lord in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard. Can you guys do that? I hope you will. I hope you'll look up more about Russia, learn more about the country, learn more about the people. We've had some really harsh leaders in Russia who've put some laws that have made it really difficult for the people there and have even caused war. But the people there are seeking, And Marty and Paul are two of the people who got to go and tell people about the Lord and then start building more and more people. As they told people, they told people, they told people, and they're teaching. So look for your open door. Pray for the people of Russia today. I hope you'll gather with your mom and dad. Pray for those people. Could you imagine having so many years where God was not allowed? And how are they recovering? How are they? Do you think their hearts are hungry? I think they are. Their hearts are hungry for the Lord. So pray for those people this week. Pray for the people in your own neighborhood that you can tell about the Lord. And we will be back next week with another trip around the world to see where we might go. All right, you guys, I love you, and God loves you so much. I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.